Hello and welcome to Pandora's Box. This is Kaleah, and today we're going to be talking about the consciousness of karma. When it feels like you are the one being punished for another person's crimes, you can't help but wonder if the perpetrator or the one slinging mud and doing all the damage in your life will ever have to pay the piper. It may feel like you are the only one suffering. You are the one being scapegoated, blamed, and persecuted. What about them? What about the one who is behind the scenes, pulling all the strings and stirring up chaos and drama at your expense? Sometimes it can feel like the perpetrator in your life gets away with his or her dirty deeds without ever having to pay the price. In fact, it can even feel as if that person or group of people are thriving and being rewarded for their horrific behavior. Those of us who have suffered psychological abuse at the hands of a narcissist, borderline, sociopath, or addict may be left with the feeling, it just isn't fair. I had a mentor who once laughed at me when I said it isn't fair. She said, "Let me tell you something. Life is anything but fair. So the sooner you stop wishing life to be fair, the better off you will be." We are often left with this feeling of injustice and feel we have no recourse. There's nothing we can do to balance the scales and feel vindicated, especially if the crimes committed are not punishable by law. Sometimes even if a crime is punishable by law, the law turns a blind eye. So where's the justice? Well, for many of us, we have to put justice in the hands of the Creator and do our best to get on with our lives without ever seeing those who have hurt us through extreme psychological abuse and bullying get what is coming to them. Karma is very complex. It's something that is hard for people to understand. And it's based on the law of cause and effect. Where there's an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's Newton's third law of motion. There's a boomerang effect to what each one of us puts out into the world energetically, and there are no exceptions. The golden rule tells us, do unto others as you would want done unto you. The golden rule isn't just for the warm fuzzies. It's based on the law of karma. What you put out will come back to you, sometimes with a vengeance. So watch what you put out there. Watch your thoughts, your deeds, and your actions, because they all matter. Nobody really gets away with anything. But what we often don't understand is there's a timing issue. You may feel the immediate effects of someone's hurtful actions towards you, and they may seem to get away with it. There may be no way you or anyone else can hold that person accountable. They may continue to do damage and go on with their life as if nothing ever happened. You may think nothing is happening to them. It's happening to me. I'm the one who's suffering. I'm the one feeling the effects, not them. Universal laws are outside of the space-time continuum. The law doesn't tell time, so to speak. Time is a third-dimensional physical construct that we use to bring order to our lives. In the law of attraction, what you do today will determine the results you have in the future. But we can't measure when the results will occur. If we're using the law of attraction to change our lives for the better, we need to develop patience because we aren't likely to see the results we are praying for or visualizing right away. We need to keep holding the vision, staying positive, and being very patient. If you're waiting to see the person who is doing or has done so much damage in your life get what's coming to them, you may need to be very patient. And by the time the boomerang takes effect in their life, you may be at a place in your life where you don't care anymore. You're not paying any attention. You may not have the opportunity to feel vindicated for the damage that has occurred in your life and the negativity that has been thrown your way, because karma can be a long, slow process. Some believe that karma even extends beyond the current lifetime, and one is born with karmic debt. I struggle with this belief, although I do believe we are born with certain lessons we have come here to learn, and that we do have a purpose for being here. Karma is a bit like a bank account. At any given time, you're either making deposits or withdrawing. Let's look at the deeds we do in our lives that are loving, kind, affirming, to be deposits, and the deeds that are destructive, cruel, and negating as being withdrawals. What is being deposited or withdrawn is life force energy. Our consciousness contains our life force energy. And the more we migrate towards darkness and destruction in our lives, the more our life force energy is depleted. Because what we would call evil deeds are life-destroying. They are anti-life, or what we would call anti-Christ. The Antichrist is not one person, it's an entity that operates through people. It is a destructive force in the universe that goes against the Christ light of love. If an individual makes too many withdrawals, they will eventually incur a deficit or debt, what we call karmic debt, and that debt has to be paid. However, the universe doesn't necessarily impose a deadline for the debt to be paid. One who operates in darkness may accumulate a lot of karmic debt before actually having to pay the price, but they will have to pay the price. The lower and denser one's energy vibration, the slower the karmic train is likely to arrive. They are stuck in the muck, so to speak, although they may not be aware that they're even in the muck. That thick, stagnant energy in their energy field just doesn't move very fast, and so spiritual growth is severely retarded. To these people, this is normal, but muck consciousness does not equal happiness. How quickly the debt is collected depends on the intent of that soul. A soul who is conscious of his or her actions and behavior and how it affects others will likely pay their karmic debt very quickly, because the sole intent of that person is to avoid collecting karma. It's like making a purchase today and paying it off right away versus over 30 years. The more conscious and aware one is, the quicker they pay their debts. Instant karma is when we see the results of our actions right away, within the same day or the same week. It may seem unfair that the more awake and aware we are, the quicker we must pay our debts. But this is a teaching, learning tool. We have the opportunity to see very quickly the results of our actions and behavior, so we can correct ourselves and align with greater love and positivity. The quicker we correct our course in life when we are off course, the more quickly we can align back to our life purpose and take the higher road. It is entirely possible that the reason some people are so hurt by the behavior of, let's say, a personality disordered individual is that they have ignored the signs for so long and have gone way off course in their life. It took a big whack over the head to wake them up and get them back on course. I've been the recipient of such a whack more than once. It's not fun. People who are not very aware may develop a sense of smugness, believing that they can do whatever they want and get away with it. You see that a lot with narcissists and sociopaths. Nobody really ever gets away with anything because the seeds each one of us sow are planted in our own consciousness. When we do things against our conscience or personal integrity, which is when we do things we wouldn't want others to do to us, a dark seed is planted within our own psyche, and that seed begins to sprout and grow, especially if we nurture that seed in some way. We can nurture darkness as much as we can nurture light. And if one nurtures darkness, it is darkness that grows in their life, and they will have many more dark and unwelcome experiences. The opposite is also true. One who has a vendetta against another person is nurturing dark energy, and it is dark energy that will take root and grow in their lives. It is basically what they're putting out energetically, and what we put out energetically is what will come back to us through the boomerang effect. We need to have a strong understanding of this boomerang effect and be very mindful of what we are sending out energetically. Those who have been hurt by another person's actions and behavior will often put out a lot of negative energy, and that too will return to them. The universe doesn't play favorites. It doesn't reason like we do. It doesn't evaluate a situation and say, well, he's throwing stones because of what she did to him, so we're not going to tally this one up. It doesn't work like this. There's not an old wise man sitting up in the clouds with a tally sheet. The tally sheet is actually in our own consciousness. We reap what we sow. Those of us who have been wronged have to work very hard within ourselves to work through our own rage, anger, sense of injustice, and desire for revenge. Because these darker emotions will come back on us if we stew on them or continue to hold on to them. The beauty of the time factor is that we are given time before the boomerang comes back. And this gives us time to work through our dark emotions and find resolution within ourselves so we don't continue to plant dark seeds in our consciousness. Sowing the seeds of love will bring us the most love and peace in our life. We need to remember this and remind ourselves to keep nurturing love, regardless of the external circumstances. And I'm not saying that we need to suppress our true feelings or invite our perpetrators into our lives. This isn't healthy at all. It's about learning to walk through our negative and dark emotions so that we can return to a place of love within ourselves. It is self-love we really need to nurture here. We need to love and forgive ourselves. We need to forgive ourselves for going to that dark place that says, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. The more awakened we become in consciousness, the more we realize that all relationships out there are reflections of our inner relationship on some level. This is a very difficult concept to understand for most. When we carry the wound of unworthiness, we magnetize people who treat us the way we feel about ourselves, and as a result, we feel even more unworthy. And this is the law of attraction at work. This is why when someone treats you in such a way that you feel unworthy, blaming that person for how you feel won't help you to heal. What will help you to heal is to acknowledge that you are feeling unworthy and love yourself while you're in this painful place. Tell yourself that you are worthy and you deserve to be treated with love and respect. Keep telling yourself this in a loving way and treating yourself with kindness, with love, with respect. And eventually, you will start to believe it. It becomes truth for you, and you begin to attract people into your life who treat you with love, respect, and kindness. People who don't treat you with respect won't have that much importance in your life anymore. You will release them to their own experience of life and release yourself from any need to engage in their dark projections, because this is exactly what is going on. The one who is treating you badly is projecting his or her unconscious emotional states onto you. When you can develop the understanding that the one who is hateful, cruel, abusive, and neglectful towards you is simply projecting their own inner reality outwards, you can stop taking ownership of the other person's disowned pain. Another aspect of karma is to understand that the person doing the dirty deeds in your life is already suffering on some level. If they were truly living in the vibration of love, they wouldn't treat you the way that they do. They're treating you according to their own vibrational frequency. When the behavior is abusive and toxic, the frequency is aligned with pain and suffering. I recently watched the movie Big Eyes about an artist who painted these big-eyed children, and her narcissistic husband, a want-to-be painter, began taking credit for her work. He was known as the artist of the big-eyed children for years, but whenever one lives a lie, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain that lie. Eventually, the lie began to destroy both the husband and the wife, and the husband's behavior became more and more toxic. She eventually left, and at one point realized she would never fully reclaim her soul until she took back ownership of her children, her art. So she came out with the truth, which was her husband's worst fear. Although the true artist was found by the court of law to be the creator of the big-eyed children and reclaimed her life and her work, the narcissistic ex-husband continued to live in the delusion that he was the true artist, although he never again produced a painting. In fact, he never in his life produced a painting. It took decades for the narcissistic husband's karma to come back on him, and it also took the true artist finding the inner strength to stand up and tell the truth after years of living a lie. But when the truth came out, she escalated to fame, fortune, and happiness, and his life went down the drain. True justice was served. This was a true story and a reminder to all of us that the truth will come out in the end, but sometimes we ourselves have to stand up to the lie. The higher we move up the vibrational ladder and align with the vibration of love, kindness, and forgiveness, the more peace we have in our life, and the less we will attract the lower level energies into our life. In the case of the artist of Big Eyes, it was her own anger and rage that led her to speak the truth. Her anger was her fuel to find her inner strength. Anger in itself is not bad, it just needs to be channeled in a positive way. It is holding on to our anger for years and years that cause us harm. We will either get cancer or be bitter and destroy our relationships or destroy ourselves through our addictions. It's important to develop the understanding that we often attract lower level energies because they match a lower vibration within us. The lower level energy within us is usually negativity we are harboring against ourselves. And this is why love and forgiveness directed towards the self or the inner child is so important. Offering love and forgiveness to ourself raises our own vibration to a higher level and changes the energies that are magnetizing towards us. What I see happening all the time in the field of narcissistic abuse is overwhelming anger and hostility directed towards the abuser. It's not that the narcissistic behavior isn't absolutely appalling. It is. At times, it can seem absolutely unforgivable. But we need to understand that what we are projecting outward onto others will boomerang back to us if we don't find our way through it. You may have heard it said that the lack of forgiveness is like swallowing poison and expecting the other to die. It doesn't work this way. When we take the poison, we are the ones who will suffer the effects. So holding on to your anger, rage, and non-forgiveness affects you, not the other person. Neville, in his book Resurrection, tells us that a person who directs a malicious thought to another will be injured by its rebound if he fails to get subconscious acceptance of the other. What he means by this is that the malicious thoughts and deeds directed to us by another can only affect us if we have a corresponding subconscious belief about ourselves. The example I used about our feelings of unworthiness is important to understand. If you feel deeply unworthy on a subconscious level, then you will be injured by other people's thoughts and beliefs in your unworthiness. If you upgrade your feelings of unworthiness to feelings of worthiness, what is projected at you has no place to stick, and it will return to sender. You might ask, if I'm feeling something on a subconscious level, that means I'm not aware of it. So how do I become aware of it? You need to look at what's showing up in your reality. If you continue to have experiences that result in your feeling bad about yourself, it is showing you an underlying feeling that is in you. And as you upgrade your belief in yourself to one of knowing that you are worthy and lovable, you will no longer allow the projections of others to affect you so negatively. Often our focus on karma has more to do with seeing the other person get what is coming to him or her. We're often looking for something to go wrong with that person, to see their new relationship fail or some sign that they're suffering. We can easily become fixated on our desire to see the other person suffer as we ourselves have suffered. This, even though somewhat normal for such a situation, incurs negative karma. This is because what we wish upon another, we also wish upon ourselves. Neville says, what you can wish and believe of another can be wished and believed of you, and you have no power to reject it if the one who desires it for you accepts it as true. This basically means that what we wish for others can also be wished of us, and that act of wishing is actually quite powerful. When we hold negative thoughts and desires of another, we may also be the recipient of such negative thoughts and desires. In a sense, we're both throwing negativity at each other and engaged in a control drama, wanting to see the other suffer. We may, through the very act of wishing suffering upon another, be bringing more suffering upon ourselves. In my experience, this dynamic can be very difficult to turn around. It's important to be authentic with your emotions, which is to be honest about how you are feeling. So it isn't about suppressing your negative or dark emotions, it's about walking through them. Dark and negative emotions in and of themselves aren't wrong or bad. It is never helpful to judge our emotions as good, bad, right, or wrong. We feel how we feel, and it's important to acknowledge and to honor this. However, we also need to learn to take responsibility for our feelings and emotions and work through them in such a way where they can be released. It's holding on to dark emotions that cause us illness, disease, and deeper emotional pain. If I ask a person who has been abused how she is feeling, she might respond with, I feel horrible. I wish that person would get what's coming to them. First of all, horrible isn't a feeling. It's a state of being. So it's important to dig deeper and get to your true feelings. Wishing someone ill is also not a feeling. It's a projection. When we wish another will suffer as we ourselves have been suffering, we are projecting our suffering outward onto the other and wanting them to feel what we feel. We need to take responsibility for what we are feeling instead of blaming the other. I am feeling very angry is an honest statement. And it is okay that you feel angry. There's nothing wrong with your feeling angry. Now, what are you going to do with your anger? If you act out and take your anger out on the other, you will just create more anger. If you instead allow yourself to feel your anger and do something to release that energy, such as pounding your pillow or take a bat to your bed or hit a punching bag or kickboxing, you're using creative ways to release the energy of anger in your body. Sometimes it's important to directly confront the person who has harmed you, and it may be important to talk to them personally or to write a letter, or in the case of the artist in Big Eyes, go to the press and the courts. Many who have been involved with someone as ruthless as a narcissist don't have the option of going to the press or the courts. And we know talking to them won't do any good either because they're not going to listen. Our stories are one of personal destruction, and there's no legal way we can retaliate for the destruction. Often, when we try to speak the truth, we are not believed, so our hands are tied. Karmic justice will not come through us or our actions. We have to surrender to a higher power and know that the karma of the narcissist will be delivered through another source. We're never really in control of such things. If you are feeling sadness or grief, give yourself a safe place to feel your feelings, to cry, to journal, and offer love, support, and nurturing to the one who is feeling sad. When you can learn to take responsibility for your emotions and be with them in healthy ways, you release the emotional charge to your perpetrator, and thereby cut the energy cords keeping you tied to them. And this is what it means to forgive. Forgiveness is really an inside job. It is the act of allowing yourself to be with your uncomfortable emotions and loving yourself through them so they no longer have power in your life. It isn't that the person who did so much damage in your life should not be held accountable for their actions and behavior. This simply is not your job. It doesn't mean you wouldn't talk to that person about how you are feeling if it is appropriate. Unfortunately, in my line of work with narcissistic abuse, narcissists can never hear you, and any talk about how you feel is usually met with hostility. Talking with someone who is not emotionally mature enough to listen and take your feelings into consideration is really pointless. There's a biblical saying, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." It's basically telling us that we must release our desire for revenge and restitution to God or the powers of the universal law, and release ourselves of the need to see justice served. This takes a lot of inner work and calls upon our greatest strength. The natural desire is an eye for an eye. We naturally want to exact revenge on the person who has harmed us. And in the state of lower consciousness human, this is exactly what we do. But as the evolving higher consciousness human who is becoming aware of how his or her thoughts, actions, and belief create his or her experience of reality, we learn how to manage our emotional natures so that we can create a life of greater love and peacefulness. The law of karma affects both the conscious and the unconscious the same. It affects both the sinner and the saint the same. Like the sun, it shines on the darkness and the light without prejudice. As awakening humans, we need to focus our attention on how we ourselves are creating negative karma through our thoughts, actions, and beliefs. We need to be mindful of what we are putting out there on the screen of life, because what we put out there is what comes back to us. It is my belief that those who are currently creating so much pain and havoc for others are doing so from a place of suffering, even if they are not showing their suffering on the outside screen. If one appears to have a charmed life while creating all kinds of havoc in the lives of others, this could not possibly be true. The law of karma and the law of attraction shows us this is not true. The truth is, what we put out into the world on an energetic level must return to us. Why would we put out hatefulness or a desire to see another suffer and fail if we ourselves are anchored in love? We wouldn't. And this says it all. We always project outward onto the screen of life what is going on inwardly on the level of our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. This is why when we want to know what is going on the inside, all we have to do is look at the outer results. Someone may have a lot of wealth, status, beauty, and a Facebook or Instagram profile that says, "My life is great," and inside be in an incredible amount of pain. We need to stop judging people as good or bad based on outward appearances. Outward appearances tell us nothing about the inner world of a person. In some cases, such as the bum on the streets who is drinking himself silly every day, the outward appearance may match the inner reality, but this is not always the way it is. So we must be mindful not to judge based on appearances. We can't know a person until we've walked a mile in his or her shoes. I had a relationship with someone who outwardly looked great, was great at what he did, and always had a smile on his face. He was always friendly to people and would seemingly do anything to help someone in need. I lived with this man for quite a long time and noticed that he was often very down on life, down on himself, down on me, and down on other people, and quite unhappy with his current reality. His unhappiness was often projected onto his nearest and dearest, and they were mistreated. It's easy to feel confused when the outer reality and the inner reality don't match up. One who knew this man casually would think him to be a very happy and caring man, but he was actually a very miserable man, and he took his misery out on those closest to him. If I were to ask him why he was so miserable, he would probably deny that he was. He would say it had something to do with me. It was my fault. And this is classic projection. This man left a trail of very angry men and women who felt abused, betrayed, and mistreated by him. For a time, I was one of those women, but the point is that he had a lot of negative energy projected onto him as a result of his actions and behavior, and this affected his life. Karma did bite this person in the behind pretty sharply, but it took a while. Several years after my breakup with him, I started to hear things, and I realized he wasn't getting away with this bad behavior. It was catching up to him. And negatively directed energy will always catch up to us, no matter who we are and what loveliness we show the world. Rather than focusing on what's going on with the person who has harmed you, turn your attention and your energy back to yourself and be mindful of your own thoughts, feelings, and behavior. This you have control over. This you can change. You have the power to change your reality based on your feeling, thinking, and believing. So focus on this and create an amazing life for yourself, one that's worth living for you. Base your life on what you love and enjoy, not what your enemies will envy. Be true to yourself. The best revenge is living an amazing life. Thank you for listening, and for more information about me and my work, you can go to narcissismfree.com or KaleahLaroche.com. Thank you, and have a great day.